Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Guess what? Good news. Senator Kamala Harris has been vaccinated, and she was very happy about it, which is odd because a few months ago she said she wasn't sure she was going to get the vaccine. But first, let's hear from her at the event from yesterday.
And I've now been vaccinated. As Joe likes to say, there's a big difference between the vaccine and vaccinations. I want to encourage everyone to get the vaccine. It is relatively painless. It happens really quickly. It is safe. The Moderna, the Pfizer today, I had the Moderna vaccine. My husband is going to have it today as well. I look forward to getting the second vaccine. And literally, this is about saving lives. It's literally about saving lives. I trust the scientists, and it is the scientists who created and approved this vaccine.
You know, it's so interesting about hearing her say all that. And also the fact that her husband gets the vaccine, too, which I think is a little... That's fine. I mean, you know, I guess we're vaccinating people who are important politically because of exactly that. They need to do their jobs. And then the loved ones of those people, because I'm still not totally sure why they get the vaccine earlier than anybody else. But I don't know. Maybe there's a reason why that I'm not aware about, or somehow it's relevant because maybe he could have gotten sick because she had. I don't know. Anyway, flash back to September, and Kamala Harris was saying very different things about the vaccine. She was saying that she did not trust the Trump administration. Here, I'll just quote her directly. I will say I would not trust Donald Trump, and it would have to be credible source of information that talks about the efficacy and the reliability of whatever he's taking, whatever he's talking about. I will not take his word for it in regards to the vaccine itself. Kamala would not answer questions when asked if she would take a vaccine if it were approved by scientists. Everything we have right now, back in September, back before the election. It's so interesting the way those positions change, depending on, I guess, what happened in the election and or how she's feeling in the moment. But she's been vaccinated. More and more political people are going to get vaccinated. And obviously, even though the rollout is being attacked in a lot of places, said a lot saying that there's not necessarily the infrastructure needed for the rollout to be as quick as hoped. The president is blaming states for not having more of a sense of urgency on that sort of thing, or at least having a plan in place that's making sense. And obviously, everybody else is blaming the president, as they're one to do on that sort of thing. Also, Lindsey Graham appeared on TV recently and spoke about a golf trip he had. Obviously, the president got a lot of flack for going golfing during a time when a lot of people thought he should sign a bill that he didn't love, and he was very honest about that. He did not love the stimulus bill for a lot of reasons. And now, the latest, as far as getting $2,000 in the pockets of Americans instead of $600, comes with some added demands. And the president actually made not the same demands, but he made requests when he offered to add money to the pockets of every American. As I said, he wanted some of the bloated spending to be removed. Now they're attacking, or at least targeting, some other potential legislation to go with it. And Lindsey Graham gave us a pretty good, candid conversation, a recap of what he talked about while he was golfing with the president. Let me play a little of this.
A $2,000 payment to people making under $75,000 is $400 billion to the debt. But we live in unusual times. It's expensive. It's not the most efficient way to get aid to people who are suffering. But $600 is not enough. The president has dug in. He wants to vote on a $2,000 payment. I support that. And he wants to repeal Section 230 to keep big tech from running the country and censoring conservatives. I support both of those. And I think we're going to get a vote in the Senate if we control the Senate. If we lose Georgia, we're never going to get a vote on repealing Section 230. They're going to send another bill over that's going to make this bill look cheap. Biden will send another stimulus package. It will have every wish list for liberals in it. It will be 2 or 3 times bigger than what we have before us. So if you want to control spending, make sure that the Republicans win the Senate.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation now about the stimulus push by the president, which, again, I'm still so dumbfounded by the fact that the media isn't celebrating this. Donald Trump, if this happens, I just want to say this. If we do get additional stimulus passed at some point, no matter what actually gets tied to it, no matter what happens, and for anybody that hates this guy, you got to give him credit for this. It was shocking to have his reaction to the stimulus bill that got passed just be out there, and the amount of time he took to sign it all the things he's done to try to get more money to Americans, which is fairly outside the talking points that many Republicans months ago or even now are still kind of comfortable having. Lindsey Graham, obviously, I guess one of the exceptions to the rule now, and there are more. But if more money winds up in your pocket in the next, say, few weeks, I guess, before he's no longer the president, it'll be 100% because of this, because of his push. He's publicly even attacked people now again on Twitter. I know he does that all the time. Even McConnell. He's even upset with McConnell for not putting anything to the vote. And as far as Section 230 goes, I don't know how much that's been talked about here on the show and how much you know about it, but it actually essentially is a set of words inside a bill that was passed. They call it the 26 words that created the Internet. It's a 1996 Communications Decency Act. And in Section 230, it essentially gives pretty much free reign to anybody in the tech space, anybody that has an internet company, to do whatever they want and not really be held accountable for it. It allows places like Twitter, Facebook, Craigslist, when it was popular, obviously any of the other big platforms out there right now, to be completely not liable. That as long as they operate in good faith to monitor their content, they don't actually have to do anything beyond that. And the president would like to see laws in place to actually do a lot more in the world of the internet. And I think a lot of us would agree with that. How exactly it's executed, to what extent. But like anyone that says censorship is wrong, you can't censor that. That's free speech. Americans have the right to that. We censor television. We do. Television that you can pop on your TV in your own home. I know cable and everything else is a little different, but just broadcast television, the same with the internet. Any person here in the country, pop on, go anywhere they want on the internet, certainly go to the social media sites we all go to. We censor some of those things. We do. And so when you say that all censorship is just utterly wrong in any way, or at least putting the companies a little bit more on blast or a little bit more held responsible for the things that they potentially do that are wrong, that's okay. That's not, in my opinion, a bad thing. Of course, also, as we see just doing the political rounds or the rounds of the day, the last 24 hours or so on television, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia was defending himself in a way. I thought it was actually interesting. He did an interview. The president has been attacking him a lot recently and the entire state of Georgia because he believes the election's still fraudulent. Not a lot of proof. I'm going to continue to let you know truthfully, honestly, because that's what I do. That's what you want in anybody that broadcasts to you. There's not a lot of actual concrete proof of election fraud to the extent needed to overturn the election. That's just a true fact now. I want to preface that, or at least, I guess, say after the fact, that it doesn't mean that it won't somehow at some point be uncovered. I can't tell you what did or didn't happen because I'm not privy to a lot of the proof that might still be out there. But as far as I've seen, as far as most of us have seen, there is not a lot of hard, concrete evidence that this happened, even though the president still talks about it and tends to go to Georgia and talk about that, among other things, while holding a rally and trying to drum up support. But he's attacking the leadership there in that state, and the governor of Georgia was on TV and talked about those attacks, but also actually praised the president first, which is probably strategy and probably intelligent to do because of his Operation Warp Speed, which, again, there's now criticism that the vaccine is not being rolled out fast enough. We're not giving enough people the vaccine quickly enough. And who's to blame for that? Still an argument you could have. But he does praise that before defending himself on the fact that as far as election fraud goes, the state of Georgia hasn't been on the same page as the president.
Well, as I said, my role in the election is not very much. I mean, that administrative duty lies with the Secretary of State's office and the counties that run the elections in our state. That's just the way the process is. But listen, I appreciate everything the president's done for this state. I've been talking about Operation Warp Speed a lot the last few days. We vaccinated our first nursing home employee yesterday, praised Operation Warp Speed and the president. I mean, we're experiencing a medical miracle right now, and quite honestly, I don't think he's gotten enough credit for that.
I just want to pause for a second right there and say that was the first 30 seconds of an answer to the question, how do you respond to the attacks the president has had and made about you on places like Twitter? He praised Operation Warp Speed first, and then at the end of his comment, he actually said some other things. He said this.
I've supported this president going into the re-elect, worked as hard as anybody in the state and in the country to help him. I've supported the legal efforts they're doing. But also at the end of the day, Shannon, I have to follow the laws and the Constitution of this state, and that's what I've been doing, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Yeah. So as of right now, and again, anybody that, and I get it, if you really truly love this president, if you really believe that the things he's done have been essentially to drain the swamp that is government, and certainly government at the highest levels, then you probably still believe his attacks on the legitimacy of this election. And I understand if you do that. But, and we all have to be honest about this, at least right now, and I know we get some Twitter reactions when we say this sort of thing on the show, and there's some videos out there, one video in particular where there was a water main break, air quotes, that may or may not have happened, and then some ballots got scooped up from under a table somewhere. Look, if that is the entirety of the case, it's not enough. It doesn't overturn enough locations, enough places, and enough states, because the president didn't lose in just one state. It's not like back when you only have Florida that could go either way, and Florida decides an election. It's more than that. And so the fraud has to be at a level that so far no one's been able to prove it's at. And that essentially is the crux of that problem. And even though the attacks continue, and even though the supporters of the president obviously tend to believe the things he says, we still need more proof, whether that's in a court of law, which is probably the better place for it to be, or for the public now. It's the kind of thing that needs to happen, because Brian Kemp, he's not anti-Trump. He is just not in agreement and not actually all that involved, as he said, in a lot of the election stuff. Anyway, this is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Buckle up. It's going to be a fun day.
I'm so tired. I'm exhausted.
If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. George Clooney has political advice, or I guess had political advice he should have provided to the president sooner, if you agree with him. And I don't know if the Cloon is the kind of guy you look to as far as the ideas in the political world that but anyway, he said that President Trump should have just advocated the mask more and he would have been reelected. This is according to the New York Times. The actor said the idea that we politicize things like a mask is crazy. Had Trump come out at the very beginning and said, we are all going to wear masks because it's the right thing to do and it's going to save a lot of lives, the whole country would have gotten behind him and he would have been reelected. This is according to George Clooney, but he thought it would be effective. It would affect his economy. So he chose to say it didn't exist, and now we're going to have 350,000 people dead. Yeah, that's not exactly a perfect take. I think that the jump there at the end was a little intense, but I do wonder if there's some truth to the statement like that had the president come out differently, maybe not necessarily specific to masks, but about coronavirus, about COVID-19 earlier on than he had. And granted, he is one that reminds a lot of people that Dr. Fauci, that a lot of the experts, if you go all the way back to February, were saying things similar to the viral clips that you see all the time of President Trump saying that it's not going to be a big deal, that the virus is going to go away magically. There was some consensus opinion, maybe not that it was going to go away magically, but it wasn't going to affect us or impact us all that terribly, that it was going to be something that didn't turn into what it's obviously been the entirety of this year. Did the president stick on that talking point longer than more people did? Did the president say things to Bob Woodward that still confused the heck out of me? A guy that had already written one takedown book about you, and you give an interview where you're candid in a way that shocked a lot of people? Sure, that stuff did happen. Would that alone have changed the outcome of the election? I don't know. It is an interesting point, though, and one that George Clooney, of all people, is making during the... I don't know if that interview was supposed to be political. And also, I truly don't understand this because you say a lot of the times, like, hey, why do we have this opinion from this celebrity on this sort of thing? Do we care about it? Do we need it? The interviewers are probably the ones that ask these questions. I don't know that some do. I don't know that most actors sit down for an interview and force the conversation political, or athletes or whoever it is. It's usually the interviewer that's like, hey, and so what do you think about this? And that's how we get the The headline, George Clooney believes Trump would have been reelected if he only told people to wear masks more. That's out there in the world. In other news, and just kind of shifting gears as much as I possibly can, because, yeah, it's almost the New Year's Eve. It's almost the end of 2020. Tomorrow, I will be hosting the show again, and we're going to celebrate the end of the year that is 2020, because how can we not? I am so excited to do that, but we're one day away from that, so let's keep going. Dunkin' Donuts is introducing a new cup of coffee. If you didn't think that Dunkin' had the best cup already, guess what? They're going to add 20% more caffeine to their extra charged coffee. So you can run on Dunkin', I guess, all day long. New extra charged coffee with a kick is what they're calling it. I thought coffee already had a kick. It's from green coffee extract, by the way, which is the kind of ingredient I have in most of the energy drinks that I drink. And yes, I know a lot of people hate on it. I drink energy drinks. I like them. I'm a millennial. I've admitted it on the show. That's one of the things I do that's very millennial friendly. And all of these energy drinks, at least the healthier ones, I'll say it comes from green tea extract now, or green coffee something. I don't know. But do you need an extra kick in your Dunkin'? Do you think that's what takes them over the top as far as any sort of coffee wars that go on? They could have just added espresso, as a lot of people are saying, because that's something that a lot of individuals probably do on their own. You do it if you go to Starbucks. You do it if you go anywhere. You need more caffeine. You add more coffee into your concoction. But no. They're going to be healthier. They're going to be original with this blend. And they're probably going to start a trend where everybody does it. You know, I remember going to Starbucks, and they have some like crazy cold nitro version of their coffee. And someone described it to me and my brother. His wife had asked for the nitro thing. It was on the menu. It was brand new. It was supposed to be extra super caffeinated. And my brother and I just sat there with the barista, who's in her early 20s and probably doesn't know all the science behind the extra shots of whatever inside this thing. But she was trying to describe to us like how many cups of coffee was in the nitro drink that my sister-in-law was about to consume. And it was obscene. It was like there's like 5 to 10, depending on how much coffee you want in there or how many shots. And we're like, that doesn't seem healthy. This seems completely inappropriate. But it's existed before. So for Dunkin' Donuts to be so proud and to do a release about their new 20% more caffeine, I mean, do we ever tip? Is there ever a point where it's way too much? Do we acknowledge that at all? That maybe we've gone over the top as far as the amount of caffeine? I don't think so. Probably not this year. Maybe we'll wait till next year for that. Also, in other news, and I got to probably get to this in more detail in a bit, but a new survey out said that 73% of Americans are wishing for just one thing in the new, necessarily the stuff you'd assume, like better health for everybody. It's just smarter money decisions. I'll get to it in more detail. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Let's talk stimulus, or actually, let's let politicians talk stimulus. It's easier than me doing it. First, we'll hear from who should we hear from? A Republican. Let's hear from Representative Mo Brooks on the stimulus and his concerns about it.
Someone's got to show me how we're going to pay for it. I mean, how far before we ultimately go into a debilitating insolvency and bankruptcy that's going to do great damage to our country and do more damage, in fact, than COVID-19 ever could have done? I don't think people understand what happens when a central government goes bankrupt, but it's not pretty. It's dangerous. You can go down the list of countries that have gone through that process, Venezuela right now being a glaring example. We don't want to go there, but that's exactly where Congress is going because we don't have enough congressmen and senators with the courage to say no or to be financially responsible.
So that's going to be the argument, right, against $2,000. Now, granted, a lot of people then point to the ridiculous spending that exists in the bill that was passed along with stimulus, the bill to fund the government and to do a lot of crazy things. And the president has always said, when asking for $2,000 in the pockets of every American, to pull back spending other places, although now he's refocused on some other things that might help bring the tech sector back into a realm that makes sense to a lot of people. But it's always been a let's do this, but let's also do something else. Part of what's been called now a poison pill, I guess, in getting that $2,000 through the Senate, because any additional things that are added to it likely don't have any support from Democrats. Let's hear from a Democrat on stimulus, which, of course, is going to be very different than what Mo just said. Let's hear from Senator Ed Markey.
In this moment of national crisis, We are able to afford spending $750 billion on a bloated defense budget, spending that is supposed to protect our country, yet did nothing to inoculate against the most profound public health emergency in a century. But we can't give hungry and suffering Americans $2,000. That is a moral failure for our country. Give Americans this money.
That could be a T-shirt for him at the end there. Just that last little sentence, you know.
Give Americans this money.
To be honest, it could really be for anything AOC says. Give Americans these houses. Give Americans this health insurance. Give them whatever we need to give them. Now, granted, when you play the two pieces back to back, the two kind of compare the basic ideas. Mo is right, Representative Mo Brooks, that we can't just keep spending. You can't just keep throwing money into a bucket and then assume that bucket's eventually going to look nicer, because the bill comes due at some point. You got to pay the toll, and you got to figure out a way to pay it responsibly. Now, granted, are there better ways to find this money, to save this money, to move it around so that Americans could get larger stimuluses than $600 a person? Yes, as demonstrated by the president in a press conference he gave a week or so ago. There is a lot of spending that makes absolutely no sense. But then you go on the Democratic side of things, and it's a very one-track mind. It's give Americans more money. Our refusal to do so is horrible and treating everybody, terribly. And it's screwing, all these very hungry, very poor, very difficult time struggling American people. And it's so complicated in the way in which we do any of this stuff, the way in which you pass any of these sort of legislations, because there's a lot of details that you and I will never know about. We'll never read. We'll never pay attention to it. Honestly, the stimulus package, the deal, it was so quickly built and so quickly passed in the House that they didn't even read it. The people who voted on it, a lot of them didn't read all the different ways in which money was going to be spent, the trillions of dollars that were going to other countries and just all over the place for silly things like museums at a time when we don't really need to fund more museums right now. I think we could have saved that money and put it other places, funding for all kinds of different studies in foreign countries that made no sense, not for protection of our country, just for sillier things. And you can dive into it. There's a bunch of different takedowns of it now. But to be honest, every single time one of these things passes in the world of government, you and I know very few of the actual details. We only know the details that are headlined, the details that are spoken about in these press conferences. And it's usually just stimulus this, stimulus that, let's get this done. They don't go into more detail because they don't want to. They don't want anybody at home to start scratching their head like, wait a minute, we spent what on what? Why did we do that? Why can't we do the $2,000 now? But it's a fight. And McConnell resisted any sort of vote on it, made the president very, very mad. The president attacked him on Twitter, said that he asked all Republicans if they have a death wish, essentially, by saying that they need to pass the $2,000 stimulus. They need to look at Section 230 and a lot of other things there so that we can start to consider ways to rein in the tech sector, because if that's at least part of the bill, it might make sense and help Republicans get over the edge. But there's no way the Democrats support that. So a lot of people are calling that a poison pill in any attempt to get this. I don't know. The president will still be influential, by the way. Even when he's not in power anymore, he will still be influential. A lot of people are discussing just how influential. I think that he will still be a kingmaker in ways for people that support him in places that he goes and campaigns. He had a lot of support. A lot of people voted for this man, and people seem to forget that often. All right, let's pivot. Let's shift gears. I only have so much energy to do this, but I guess it's important to do. We can talk a little bit about COVID-19, a little bit about the newest virus strand that is, I guess, popping up. It's in Colorado now. It was first found abroad. I think the UK has struggled a lot with it. Essentially, it's just even easier to get infected with it than other strands of the virus. I don't know if it's potentially more deadly. I think it's fairly new. However, a few different medical professionals appeared on TV over the last 24 hours and talked about a lot of the things that they understand better than we do. Dr. William Hasslein is one of those people, and let's hear from him.
Well, I would take a good look at France. France has this variant. France had a rate of infection higher than the United States, and in 3 weeks brought it down by 20 times, saving thousands and thousands of lives. We could save those same lives here if we took the same very strict measures, including travel bans. For example, not allowing over 1 million Americans to travel by air and many more by train and bus. We could put this thing back in the bottle very, very quickly if we did that. It would be, I think, highly controversial, but it's what we need to do. We now know this variant is here.
Yeah. Travel bans, which is something that obviously the president had done way back in the day as far as China is concerned. Travel bans with the UK, travel bans with a lot of places. Just force Americans to stay at home, I guess, and hope that that means that we have a lot less transmission of viruses and a lot less transmission of new strands of COVID-19. The vaccine is here. It's going to take a while for everyone to get it. Obviously, that amount of time has been debated in and of itself, but it'd probably be the summer, according to most medical professionals, that everyday Americans will start getting this vaccine. Now, granted, some people like Fauci say that doesn't mean we stop wearing masks, which is interesting and probably not something that's going to motivate as many Americans as he hopes to motivate to get the vaccine. But we'll see. Obviously, the treatment of it itself seems very promising. I don't know how the new strands are impacted by that. But it is interesting, too, to hear from the doctor on just how smart COVID-19 is. And I think we'll actually have somebody on tomorrow, a guest on the show, to talk a little bit about what China didn't know and when they didn't know it. But let's hear just a little bit more from Dr. Hasslein.
And I suspect we have our own homegrown variants that are doing the same thing. This virus is much trickier than anybody said it was. It is able to evade our immune system in convalescent anti-sera. It is a very tricky virus, and we've got to understand what we need to do to save lives.
When you hear descriptions like that, and I just want to be honest, I don't have a lot of basis in fact when I say this. It's just my gut reaction, and I want to share it because, well, I got a microphone in front of me and a radio that's allowing me to be on the air, several. It does make me curious why it's such an intelligent virus. You know, like what about it made it so good at so many things? So good at being transmissible compared to any virus before it. I mean, the R rate or the R number, which is something I had to look into, the amount of people that'll get it after one person gets it, the amount of people you potentially pass it to is like 3 or 4 times things like the flu. There's ways where people compare the two things, and obviously that gets ridiculed more now than ever before. But one way where they're utterly different is just the amount of people that you pass it from yourself to this many different strangers, this many different people that you've interacted with, and it's very, very high. And if there's new strands that get even worse, that in and of itself is worrisome, I would say for sure, even if, and this gets pointed out to me often when I talk about COVID-19, a lot of people who get it, a high majority of people will wind up being okay. They won't have serious illness. Although, as I say that too, and I know it's in the news today and it's a very sad story, a politician lost his life in a fight with COVID-19 that really it's crazy how quickly that happened. Luke Letlow is a congressman-elect that announced he had COVID-19 on the 18th of December and was at home quarantining. By the 19th of December, just a day later, he was at St. Francis Hospital with a more serious version of symptoms. And unfortunately, he passed away from a heart attack that was, I guess, following a procedure related to the infection. So that loss of life is obviously going to be at the forefront of so many people's minds as we continue to talk about COVID-19 itself and its potential dangers for our society, that there is, a politician that now is no longer here. And there's even other just news about this. Today I saw in the New York Times that a small number of COVID patients have reported severe mental or psychotic symptoms. People like a 42-year-old victim of COVID-19, a 42-year-old patient of COVID-19, I should say, has mentioned that they've now have experiencing mental symptoms similar to the Kill Bill movies, like violent tendencies. I don't understand. The news stories on this all the time, I don't understand. And I don't know what the right approach is other than to hope that we all get vaccinated ASAP and that actually works. That actually helps us all get through this whole thing, because it's one day away from the end of 2020, a year that I want to kick in the bucket as much as any of the rest of you do. And hopefully in the new year, everything gets much, much better. All right, I'm going to take a break. After the break, because that got sad. I don't know how to deal with that. After the break, I want to talk about Michael Flynn, right, former national Trump national security advisor, because he's selling some stuff online that I think is kind of interesting. Also, some deep fake videos are out there that entertained me, but probably bad. A lot more to get to. The Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
If you like talk radio like Chad Benson likes his meals, you've come to the perfect place for takeout.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I mentioned that Michael Flynn is selling stuff now. Michael Flynn, former Trump national security advisor. What is he selling? QAnon merchandise. If you don't know what QAnon is, it's an internet group, a hashtag, a lot of different things. It's supposed to be an individual, too, that has the inside scoop on a lot of what's going on in the world of politics. It's gone to the forefront of, I guess, a lot of media because it's followed more and more by, even people like President Trump, I think, sometimes have referenced QAnon and some of the things that they or he have put out there in the world. But Flynn, during his drawn-out legal battle with special counsel Robert Mueller, became a hero to the QAnon believers, to the QAnon supporters out there, so much so that they tried to do a lot of deep dives into understanding and getting more information about what was going on as far as his legal battle is concerned. So Flynn likes QAnon, and he is now hawking T-shirts on his website, a shirt that shows USA Pride, according with QAnon gear, I guess a lot of other things, T-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, all kinds of stuff, trucker hats, camo trucker hats. Yeah, they're all different prices. I think $35 for some of the hats. And I guess he's doing okay in the world of the hawking the merchandise with his name attached to it, and the fact that it's something that, as I said, has gained a lot of mainstream. I guess people just are knowledgeable about QAnon more so than anything else. Mainstream. I'm not sure that it's actually acceptance of some of the stuff that's said out there. But yeah, that's what Michael Flynn's going to do with his time, and I guess it's going to work out okay. Also, I saw that the internet has been flooded with some 60,000 deep fake videos over the course of this past year, and these are high-profile ones because I'm sure there's other ones, things like the Queen of England doing what is described as a raunchy dance, and deep fakes are getting better and better and better. According to many experts, it seems very convincing that this video has this famous person, politician, celebrity, whoever, in it doing something interesting, and case in point certainly is this video of the Queen that I would not recommend watching, even though I did for research purposes. And they do say that this is tremendously risky as far as we go moving forward, that if deepfake videos can be popular online and spread quickly through things like social media, they could have a tremendous impact on our society. And so, again, when we're talking about some of the things that are in the stimulus maybe debate and how Section 230 could essentially become part of any bill passed to give more money to Americans at a time when they need it, and also clamp down on tech companies and internet companies who right now have free reign to not really worry if the stuff on their site is monitored well or censored well. This might be a good demonstration for just how important it is to get better at that, if it's involvement with the government or not, to find a way to prevent this sort of thing. There's a 250% growth year over year in videos like this, and some are harmless and silly, like the Queen dancing, and others are not. Others are high-profile people, scientists, CEOs, politicians saying things that either you'd never expect them to say or things that are patently false in ways that are potentially damaging, potentially dangerous. So deep fake videos out there in the world, and something that we need to censor a little bit better. I also saw that 73% of Americans want smarter money decisions to be the biggest change for them in the new year. In a year in which, honestly, I don't know if this is true for you, but with the limitations on what you can and couldn't do over the course of 2020, it did become a little easier to maybe refrain from some spending, going out spending, whatever the kind of spending was that so many of us are prone to do, that maybe you look back on and say, well, I could have eaten out a little bit less. I could have done this a little differently. But most people who are struggling financially say that that's the biggest thing they'd like to see change. Although it's interesting that in this report, 42% of Americans said that medical expenses alone were the biggest problem in the past year, and 49% said the increase in medical bills was one of the biggest challenges. That's not necessarily something that you can do by smarter spending, although the president, among other people, has said it'd be nice if those prices were all published online. If you could pull up a hospital, granted, you wouldn't do this in an emergency situation, but in a different situation, and look up pricing the same way you do anything else before deciding who to shop with, that probably would help a lot in at least forcing the hospitals to be more competitive about that pricing, about that information. So I think that is a tremendously good idea. Other people said that just getting out of debt in general, 38% would be a big accomplishment in the year 2020, removing unnecessary bills, things like maybe streaming services that you don't use because there's a million of them. 33% said that. Seeking more deals or coupons, 33%. My wife has been obsessed with coupons in this year, more so than ever before. Find all the coupons, every coupon, get every sale we can. And I like it. It's cool. I'm not, complaining. At the same time, it feels weird when you drop down 20 or 30 coupons while you're doing a grocery store shop, and it's just the wife and I. There's no other family members involved in what we're buying for. So really, I don't know if that. But hey, we saved money. That's good. And apparently, 33% of Americans agree with her. Just spending money wisely. A third of people said that. And using a technology app to manage your savings, manage your spending. There's a lot out there that'll do this, that'll track all that for you. There's also 30% of Americans that feel that way. So if in 2021, we don't necessarily get the bigger things as far as some of the hopes that all of us have for the world to get back to a better place, but you spend your money better, apparently 73% of Americans would be happy with at least that change from this year to next year. And as I said before, it's interesting because I can't imagine a whole lot of excessive spending taking place as easily in the year we just had as a year that goes back to normal. But I guess maybe the internet was the biggest culprit there. Everybody went online. Everybody went to Amazon or wherever to buy additional things because you were cooped up inside. So maybe just that going away to an extent would be good. Chad Benson Show. Greg Collins filling in.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I'll be with you for one more day tomorrow, and then in the new year, you'll have Chad back here on the airwaves. I found a story, and I'll get to it in a second. I won't do it now, but I want to tease it. A psychic told us what to expect in 2021, because why not? I mean, and this is going viral. The predictions made by a psychic who actually has a book out that they're hawking to. Of course they are. So we'll get to those in a minute because, to be completely honest with you, I don't know. Why not? Why? I'll at least listen. I'll at least entertain the idea. If someone wanted to do a tarot card reading for me, now is the only time that I'd probably like, all right, just, at least I'll have some heads up in case somebody winds up. But I have to start with this story because I like it so much. And it's not necessarily in the world of political news, and we'll get to that in a second too. But an NFL player, the first one to do this, is going to get paid in Bitcoin. In May of 2019, NFL player Russell Okung, I think is his name. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I apologize if you're a Carolina Panthers fan. He's got a $13 million salary, and he asked for it all in cryptocurrency. The arrangement comes by the way of the Bitcoin startup Zap, which apparently has been trying to get their name out there. So Zap is going to help this guy get his salary. He's 32 years old. He was the 6th overall pick in the 2010 draft by the Seahawks. He won a Super Bowl with the team in 2013. So he's a very good player, but he's decided to take, and he's been a long-time proponent of Bitcoin too, of course. He's decided to take all of his pay via Bitcoin. And I just think that that's tremendously interesting as a move and something that I'm just seeing now and just is getting a more, I guess, Fox 5 in New York covered this story. Thank you for your diligent reporting there. Because maybe it's a terrible move. Maybe it's a great move. I don't know. He's going to be hailed in a way for it, but that's just... Can you see that happening more? More and more people taking digital currency forms of money? I mean, I remember Bitcoin. I don't know why I remember Bitcoin back when it first started, and somebody like buying a pizza with like thousands of Bitcoins, which are now worth a lot more money than when you bought just the one pizza. So maybe, again, this is a genius decision, but I doubt a lot of us would make the move Russell's making and trust the old Bitcoin as the way in which to have money. But, you never know. The economy, everything else, how things go. Bitcoin, a thing made up by a dude that's now valuable and worth money. I wish I could invent the next Bitcoin. I really want to come up with something like that and then be rich, because that would be lovely. There's a Vermont home for sale that includes a lot of strange things. It's only $150,000, so it's really not a terribly, out of reach home for a lot of people. $149,000, at the latest posting, but it's got jail cells and a barn. Why does it have jail cells? It was built a long time ago. It's a historic building. It was built, long enough ago that I guess you're not even going to be able to remodel it terribly easily. It is a New England style structure. It is 2,100 square feet. It sits on an acre of almost a full acre lot. It has a private backyard, a detached barn included. And then, as I said, there's some jail cells. I don't think you could buy that home. I don't think you can walk through the home with the missus, then point to the old jail cells and be like, well, that'd be a cool feature in the house. I don't think they say yes to that. I don't think anybody, the kids, if you have kids walking through the home with you, which I don't know if that's something you do, if you bring the kids along when you're thinking about your next home, I don't think they'd be. I don't think anyone would be happy about the jail cell. Maybe you remove it, maybe you change it, but that's a house that's out there in the world for sale. And the real estate agent is saying that it's, a unique find, of course, at the very least. I also saw this story jumping around before we get to some more important news because I can't help it. A mom-to-be who's pregnant with twins apparently did something which is exceedingly rare. She became she conceived a third child. She's pregnant with twins that are probably due soon, and then she's got a third baby just starting the process out. I mean, that is ridiculous. I can't. Her name, by the way, this is, it is what it is. Her name on TikTok, which is where she is sort of a star and where she's, I guess, gotten this story out, is the Blonde Bunny 1. I guess she kind of looks like Britney Spears, according to this story from the New York Post. She's more than 235,000 followers. She's got a very big bump as she's 17 weeks along now with quote-unquote triplets because, well, there were already two babies there. You somehow get another. I can't fathom how you deal with that with the doctor, too. There's an old joke about how, a guy isn't expecting as many kids as a wife gives birth to, and eventually he starts to blame the doctor for too many kids being born at the same time. I don't want to tell the whole joke here, so I'm going to do a real bad job of telling you that version of it. But this would feel like that if you found out as, a family. I don't know, probably there's a lot of joy involved, but also some confusion. Wait, she's already pregnant. We already have twins coming. What do you mean there's a third kid in there now? I don't know, but the Blonde Bunny 1 has a third kid coming. And congratulations to the family. I hope that everybody is healthy and happy and that goes incredibly well. All right, fine. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the news that's actually a little bit more mainstream. Donald Trump and Michelle Obama were both voted the most admired people in 2020. There was a lot of back and forth here in this article about how usually the sitting president is elected in the poll like this for Gallup, although, now with the president-elect coming in, there was some confusion about it. I guess Republicans very much picked Donald Trump as the man they most admire this year. Democrats were split among a lot of different people. So that's part of the reason for the win there. The president has tweeted about that as one of the many things that he feels is confusing in a year in which he lost an election but somehow could win something like that. And I do think that, yet again, a lot of this stuff, a lot of the things that have been said by the president as far as the things that are most confusing about the election, that Biden somehow had more support than Barack Obama had back in 2008, that all of these things that happened are legitimate, logical questions to be asked, and yet don't necessarily push us to the realm of proving any sort of thing. But the president tweeting out a lot about, obviously, his feelings on the election still, and then, of course, even attacking those like McConnell, who are doing things like blocking his stimulus attempts. I also saw in other news that New York restaurant owners are attempting to sue Governor Cuomo to allow in-person dining. In a lot of places in the country, and I've talked about restaurants a bit during the fill-in shifts here, you just can't really do outdoor dining. You can't really do it in December, January, February. There's a lot of places it's not going to work. It's not going to make a lot of sense. Essentially, to do it and do it okay, you're going to have to enclose yourself in something. So what's the difference between that and an indoor establishment? And also, I talked about this story the other day, that there are more and more people in the city of New York that are just leaving, just going somewhere else to get indoor dining because they want that experience. It's been too long to not have it, so you're just going and getting it somewhere else anyway. So if the risk behavior still exists, it makes it more complicated. In the lawsuit, the restaurant owners are saying that this is one of the busiest seasons of the year. Many customers are going miles out of their way in order to go ahead and eat indoors at other places, and so it just makes sense to allow for indoor dining. I can't fathom the amount of loss financially of a New Year's Eve occurring and a lot of restaurants in places like New York City not being able to have indoor dining. And if you do have it, if you have it in any capacity whatsoever in California, New York, anywhere, and people find out about it, as they did with one of those other restaurants out of California, the reaction to it is so extreme, so upset, so many people mad that anyone would even try to do this. And yet we do. We all neglect. I think there was another restaurant owner that was on the TV the other day saying how it's really just for his workers more than him that he's trying to stay open. He's got a cook that's got a kid on the way. And so as we see these lawsuits pop up, as we see these challenges emerge, we wonder just how effective they could possibly be because, you know, these are companies, and this is an industry for sure that is struggling more than any other industry, or probably as much as any other industry right now. Maybe airlines, maybe movie theaters, a few others. I'll land on that list too. But they need some sort of reprieve, some sort of help. And if that help comes from being able to operate in some capacity, in the at least holiday time period we're all in right now, I'm sure that it would help a lot in getting people through some of this portion of the challenge that has been this year, although it's going to end tomorrow. So thank God for that. One last quick mention of the fact that the president has turned up his push for the $2,000 checks. He did tweet out that unless Republicans have a death wish, and it is also the right thing to do, they must approve of the $2,000 payments ASAP. $600 is not enough, all caps. Also, get rid of Section 230. Don't let big tech steal our country, and don't let the Democrats steal the presidential election. Get tough. That is a tweet from the president in the last day or so. It obviously echoes a lot of the things he's been saying and trying to do as far as stimulus and everything else is concerned. McConnell so far not willing to even take that up to vote, but we'll see exactly how that all transpires. And I just want to continue to reiterate this. It's something I guess I'm going to be a broken record about. If we wind up getting $2,000, even if you hate this guy, even if this is the president that's not your president, even if that's true, if $2,000 winds up getting in your pocket in the next couple weeks, 100% because of this push, this very public attack and push by the current president of the United States, nobody else. Pelosi, everybody that's on the Democratic side of the aisle, that if you hate the president, you might like those people. They tried or didn't. Maybe they were purposefully not trying all that hard to pass this for a while. No chance of any of that happening. It was only because of the president that we've gotten back into this world of discussing it. And if you don't agree with it, like many Republicans feel that it might be too much spending, that's fine. I understand the different nuances to the conversation. But if it happens, credit where credit is due. We all deserve to at least say that that's why this sort of thing would change this late in the game after a bill was already passed. This would be a dead conversation if not for single-handedly the president of the United States and his daily commitment to discussing this. And that's just true, whether you like the guy or not. All right, this is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
You stink like fear and white male privilege to me.
I do often out myself verbally as a gender. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm proud to be a gender.
Are you stupid? What? Are you kidding me?
Not a great way to use your white privilege.
Some people get it, some people don't.
You're listening to the Chad Benson Show.
That's right. You're listening to the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back in the new year. I don't know why. At the end of 2020, I felt like it was okay to hear from a psychic. Anne Hirsch has actually made some pretty startlingly accurate predictions over the years. She's had a long, lengthy career as a psychic. She has predicted some really awful things like the attack on the Twin Towers. She's also predicted Brexit, the Japanese tsunami. She's been right about things in the world of politics. She also got the invasion of Iraq correct. She said there would be a black U.S. president and then a blonde U.S. president, and obviously got those things correct. So out of all the psychics to turn to get some information about the potential for 2021, she's not the worst. I don't know if that sentence is kind of like saying, you're the fastest guy in a slow person race or whatever it is that you want to say. What I mean is speed, by the way. That wasn't a take. It wasn't a shot at any sort of human being. That was a shot at people who are not in good shape trying to run a race. Because that's, to me, what all psychics are. They're not real professionals. She said some interesting things about the world of pop culture. She thinks people like Katy Perry might be influential in the coming year. She thinks that Kim Kardashian is going to, and I quote, take a step back and reflect on her life in 2021, which if she's right about that, I'll give her a lot of credit. Kim Kardashian is is an internet human. That's what she's known to be, outside of, I guess, some other things she's done, even with the president and helping with prison reform. So maybe she's right about that. She thinks that the cottage creative industries, as she calls them, people who make things in the comfort of their own homes, celebrities like some of the musicians who've done things like that over the last year, will become a huge and influential art form in 2021. People just working out of their garages, which I think is already kind of a thing too, but not really a startling prediction. She thinks that we'll all collectively as a society take a step back from social media in the next year because, and maybe this is just using your own logic to say, I don't feel like this is really a psychic prediction per se, but she said because of how much maybe we all utilize social media in 2020 as the world comes back to normal, which she predicts it does, by the way, good news there. She thinks that maybe we'll all stop using social media quite as much as we used in the past. And maybe that's just going to be logically correct. Maybe there is going to be a tipping point for so many people as far as the world of the Facebooks and the Twitter and everything else go, because there's been study after study saying that it's not a healthy part of our lives, and yet we continue to utilize it. So I don't know. That prediction doesn't really strike me as all that risky as far as the psychic goes. But here's the last thing she said, too, about the difference between 2020 and 2021. She said that 2021 will be far easier as far as the year goes compared to 2020, which, again, I don't know if I paid a psychic to tell me that. I don't know if I'd feel all that great about it, although the World Health Organization is warning that there might be, more and worsening pandemics in our future anyway at some point. I don't think they're saying next year. So there's that for Ann to consider. But she said this can be a far easier year. We will be aware of what we need and what we learned from 2020. We'll be grateful for things differently. Again, this all just feels like a reflection of logic more than a prediction. We'll appreciate our health, our work, our opportunities, our chance to travel, all the different ways in which we're connected. There will be a fascination for the old way of doing things. Some of the things from yesteryear will come back into focus as we move into the next year. So that is what psychic Ann Hirsch says. And again, she's someone who's made some startlingly accurate predictions at times. I don't think she took many risks in the things she told the publication that caught up with her. And again, she's hawking some books. She's got books out there. She is worried a little bit. This is interesting. I shouldn't mention this too, about the presidency of one Joe Biden, which I think is interesting. And she's from the UK, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. She's worried that President-elect Joe Biden and his administration might get overly involved in overseas issues, in skirmishes and things that go on overseas, that the president of the United States, our current one, Donald Trump, was very much against getting involved in not just, conflicts, but a lot. He left the U.S. out of a lot of those conversations. And she, this psychic, is worried that Biden won't do that, and that'll cause issues and drama. And there will be a lot of changes in leadership across a lot of countries, according to her. The good news is people will be ready to step up when needed. That's a quote that comes from Ann Hirsch. Again, I don't know exactly what she's talking about. All right, real quick, in other news, and just sillier news that I like to talk about a lot as much as I can, and we might run out of time, so I might hit this topic again later on in the show. But there's a list now of the silliest TikTok challenges or the silliest social media challenges of 2020, and some of them are things that I guess you'd have to really see to understand, like people who tried on different outfits. It's called the Flip the Switch Challenge. You turn a light on and off, and each time you turn it on, boom, you got a new outfit on, and maybe they were crazy outfits, maybe they were silly things because we weren't going out places. There was a couple challenge where two people would sit with their eyes closed next to each other, obviously a couple that's dating, and then someone off screen would ask questions about which person is worse or known to do things, like which person's better with money, for example, and you'd point at each other. This is dangerously fraught with a fight coming up immediately after making the social media video, but that was popular. My favorite one, though, is one that I think I need to try and put a video up tomorrow on the social media pages for my show, The Craig Collins Show, or maybe The Chad Benson Show. It was called the Level Up Challenge. It's where you built a wall, or at least a hurdle, out of everyday objects inside your home, and then you tried to jump over it, and it was something you did to the song Level Up by Sierra, and you saw how many things you could leap over in your house. So come on. I think that's a pretty fun challenge. Let's all try that out. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in and about to level up.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Stoked to be here with you for one more day tomorrow, too, and then Chad is back in the new year. I saw that there's a take out of Bloomberg that the Georgia runoff is going to be high drama, and it's going to take a long time before we know results, which just sounds great. You know, like set me up in a good way to look forward to the future by telling me these sort of things. There is a political scientist at a Kennesaw State University that said there's almost no chance that these races will be called the night of the election, almost none. Adding to the drama just this past November, we will see something very similar happen. There will be lawyers involved. They will be brought in on a horseback, according to another political consultant. Yeah, that sounds like a bunch of fun. That sounds like a whole good time. And at least that's coming in 2021, so we don't have to worry about it for the next couple of days here. And I'm sure Chad will be very happy to have that be one of the first conversations when he's back on the show. But I guess it's not totally shocking since the races are so close. And the odds are that a lot of people will have reactions to the legitimacy of them just because of how much that's been brought to the forefront of conversations by the president and other people, that making sure you get it right. And there's new audits that have taken place in some areas. There's breaking news today that in some of those locations, audits have continued to prove that the elections were so far on the up and up everywhere they've been challenged, or for the most part, with small changes that aren't necessarily changing the outcomes of any sort of data as far as who won and where. So that's where we're at right now as far as that is concerned. But it'll be interesting to see just how accurate this prediction is that the Georgia runoffs will be dramatically close and likely to be challenged. It would be interesting to see if Democrats lose and if Democrats say that it's fraudulent. That's the most intriguing scenario for me, is that if both Democratic candidates do not win in a state that has predominantly been a Republican state for a long time, so it wouldn't really be shocking if they didn't, and then they have some sort of accusation that fraud took place. There have always been those sort of hypocritical moments before in politics, so I wouldn't put it past anyone for it to happen again. But it is very interesting, and we'll see as we get closer to it exactly how that all plays out. In other news, I saw this. Firefighters were saving a very sacred delivery, according to them, in Canada, of toilet paper. This broke over the last 24 hours or so. There's a quote from the fire chief in TransCanada's eastbound location where this, truck broke down and then began to smoke and maybe some fire emerged. We responded to a report of a tractor trailer that was on fire, and we decided that we had to unload the product as quickly and as safely as possible to get this sacred toilet paper out and safe, because so many people need it and care about it in the year that is 2020, or at least the next few days of the year that has been 2020. He said every toilet paper roll these days is important, and we did our best to save what we could. I mean, it's weird to think how accurate he is in saying that, because any other time in our lives, if a truck full of toilet paper caught on fire, you'd be like, oh, that's a shame. But you wouldn't really feel as bad as this year, where so many people probably reacted like, no, get in there, do what you can to save the toilet paper, please. And they did. They put every effort into it, which I wonder if there was even pressure. I wonder if, as a firefighter who goes into much more dangerous situations, I imagine sometimes, when you realized what the product was, you actually had a heightened sense of needing to save it, similarly to the way that the fire chief described. Or if you really just did this, slowly and like, well, we'll save what we can. But come on, this toilet paper. This isn't people. I saw that 4 suspects in an armed robbery are wanted now for stealing different things in Colorado, in Pueblo, Colorado. What's interesting about this story is not necessarily those facts I just told you, but the things they stole. They took vape pens, they took cash and some other items from the store, which maybe to some extent makes sense. They also stole male enhancement pills, is what they're called. I don't know why these 4 suspects targeted that item. I don't know if there's a tremendous amount of resale value on the streets for that item, but the reason that this story has gone viral, they took off in a Toyota Camry, by the way. So if you're in Colorado and you notice a black Toyota Camry with, I don't even know what to describe of the suspects, but 4 dudes with vape pens and anything else going on, that you probably should call authorities, because those guys are wanted on suspicion of hitting up in an Ulta convenience store on the 21st, just before Christmas. That it's such a weird thing to take if you get caught for that. And I do hope that criminals get caught all the time. And I don't mean to talk about these sort of things to tell criminals how to do things better. But not only are you going to be in a lot of trouble for, armed robbery, stealing, all that kind of stuff, you're going to be known for the rest of your life as one of the guys who stole enhancement pills as well. I mean, I can't even imagine having to deal with that in prison. If you go to prison and have to describe to the other guys, oh, what are you in for? Well, we took some stuff from a convenience store. What'd you take? I plead the fifth. Don't answer that question. Never go down that road because you never, ever, ever get over the fact that this is a thing you chose to do. I don't know if it's an in-the-moment thing. I'm so curious. I have so many more questions about this than much more important stories. I should probably move on because I can't resist, and I probably will get in trouble if I ask too many more of them. But it's just such an odd thing. Like, I don't know. I want to know if there's value. Toilet paper feels like it would have been more valuable this year than that move, and especially the over-the-counter stuff at a convenience store. We're not even talking about moving on. I got to move on. I can't help myself. That story is ridiculous. In Pittsburgh, a Facebook page has helped a lot of laid-off restaurant workers with an interesting kind of slogan. Adopt a server is the name of the campaign. It was started way back in March. One of the people who created it is connected to the restaurant industry. They said it was just heartbreaking to think of all the people who've dealt with a lot of struggle in that world specifically. So the program, which launched to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on restaurant workers to help pay for bills, get Christmas presents, all that kind of stuff, has been tremendously successful. I had a woman who reached out and said to me, I want to help. I have boxes of food ready to go for the holidays. Where do I bring them? Who do I give them to? So Adopt a Server became, I don't know if, I think it's just the slogan or the name of it that gives me a tiny bit of pause because I want to donate. I want to help people in need just like everybody else does. I don't actually want to adopt a server, and I know that that's not what they're saying, but like, can you envision that? If you actually oh, come on in, people who used to be in the restaurant industry, I have now adopted a 25-year-old former, waiter or waitress. That it's just an odd, to me, I don't know. I think it's probably silly and in jest, and that's why it's been so popular. But at the same time, just throwing the phrase out there the way they throw it, adopt a server, is I don't know. I would think an extra second before I send the donation. That's all I'm saying. I saw this story at a Los Angeles. A woman, 95 years old, has been threatened with eviction because she's being too loud in her apartment. I guess the reason why she's being too loud and neighbors are complaining, 95 years old, by the way, she's having outdoor conversations with her granddaughter. Her granddaughter likes to visit her, likes to see grandma, but doesn't want to put her at risk of any sort of COVID infection. So the grandmother, 95, stands outside and has an outdoor conversation. This is not necessarily like late at night, by the way, either. It's usually during fairly normal human hours. And just the conversations, I guess, are annoying the other people who live in the apartment complex, and an apartment complex that this woman has lived in for nearly 20 years. And I don't know. As I reflect on this story, I think about both sides of the potential problem. But she's 95, and she's doing everything she can to prevent getting sick, or at least her granddaughter cares a lot about it. So I think I would err on the side of not caring. I don't think I would complain about this woman and try to get her kicked out of her apartment. At the same time, if you're trying to be totally honest, in the trust tree, everybody get in there. And I know this is going to sound somewhat heartless. Depending on how loud the conversations are and how often they're happening, you could get annoyed as a neighbor. Maybe you have some version of a conversation, I guess outdoors with your neighbor, asking them maybe to walk a little bit further down the road to have some of these chats and keep socially distant, whatever they need to do, hit up a park or something. I don't know. But I don't think you'd try to get them kicked out. This story has gone viral, though, because of exactly that. So many people accusing the family members of being heartless. I think one person said that this is really sick, and none of them want to be in this situation to begin with. So it's horrendous that she's actually trying to deal with being. And by the way, threatened with actual eviction, that seems intense. All the complaining, all the other things that might go on, or a landlord even warning the person to maybe be more considerate of the people who live in that apartment complex makes sense. But actually kicking the woman out, like no one could, I don't think you could do that. So trust tree, full disclosure, no matter how upset I'd get as a neighbor who was annoyed by daily conversations happening outside my doors that might be loud, maybe, I still don't think that you'd ever be able to stomach it to watch this person potentially get evicted. And honestly, in a lot of places, you can't even really do that still because there's federal things passed that prevent the eviction in general. But this story has gone viral, mostly because of the age of the person involved and the fact that her granddaughter just wants to chat with her in California during a time that is obviously challenging to so many of us. All right, this is the the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in. I will talk about a lot of other things coming up in just a bit, including scientists and a new discovery, another way to treat COVID-19 that's over the counter. We can all buy it after this.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. The Atlantic has an interesting story out there. They're referencing a lot of the reporters, political reporters, talking head people who seem to think they're not going to try as hard to fact check the incoming administration as they did the past one. Jim Acosta, a few of these people admitted this kind of stuff. Jim Acosta said, I don't think the press should be trying to whip up the Biden presidency and turn it into a must-see television thing in a contrived way. It sounds like a double standard. Yeah, according to a lot of people, including The Atlantic. But Jim said that if the attacks on the media hadn't happened during the Trump administration, the Trump reporters, the people covering it like himself, wouldn't have had to perform so much in order to kind of fight back against it. He said that if covering the White House was capable of getting hazard pay, that he deserved it. That is Jim Acosta to a T. Also, Daniel Dale, a former Toronto Star correspondent who rose to stardom at CNN as well, for his exhaustive cataloging of every single Trump lie, at least according to him, said that he doesn't think it'll be necessary to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, fact check Joe Biden. I don't know why. He said that the stress and the same intensity and rigor that he applied to the Trump administration just won't need to happen. I mean, how do you possibly deal with? And this is before the guy's even taken over. He's not even in control. He's got Hunter Biden and all these controversies that already exist. People are already questioning some of the ways in which he and his family do business when he's in political positions of value. And certainly this is now the most valuable one he's ever been in. And yet you have reporter after reporter being like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we need to dive too hard into that. How is that not a double standard? Just do it for like a month or a year or something to at least prove to yourself that the guy isn't lying all the time about everything that he says, or at least lying as much as the current president did, in your opinion. Why would you say before he's even taken the oath of office that, yeah, that's fine. You're just going to leave him alone. It'll do great. I don't know how you watch those people and watch that channel after hearing stuff like that, but that's just me. I mentioned this a second ago. Scientists are studying. It's not necessarily confirmed proof yet. So I want to throw a little bit of cold water on this next statement. But they're studying a potential treatment of COVID-19 that's available over the counter. It's surprising, maybe in its ability to help you fight the virus. Melatonin, and this is not something you want to take in high doses, by the way. So I'm not telling you to run out to the store right now, grab a melatonin, and down a bottle, because that would probably not be a good move. But in very early studies, and this is out of the Cleveland Clinic and a couple other places, it is important to note these findings do not suggest people should start to take it until they've consulted with a physician. But large-scale observational studies and randomized control trials are critical in validating what has been some early findings, some early results about the potential benefit of melatonin for patients that have confirmed cases of COVID-19. We are excited about the association that's been put forth in some of the recent studies and the opportunity to further explore and look into that type of stuff. So as we talk about new strands of the virus and all the other maybe sad and potentially depressing things that are coming up in the world of this, we also potentially land on some of the more valuable aspects of the conversation, some of the more valuable things that there might be more and more solutions. There's antibody solutions that might be very effective and certainly even somewhat demonstrated by the president when he got COVID-19. He got over it quickly. There's obviously the vaccine, and now potentially maybe completely over-the-counter options too. Because, and I'll say it again, I've said it before, we don't understand COVID-19 as well as we will 2 years from now. And obviously over the course of this year, we've gotten more and more of an understanding of it. Maybe, just maybe, there's more treatments that'll help us all out. Hilaria Baldwin has been in the news for a few days, and I didn't know if I wanted to talk about it. I really didn't consider it being all that big of a deal. Alec Baldwin's wife, she told the New York Times in an interview posted, I guess today, that she had always hidden her parents' true background as not necessarily of Spanish heritage, because she blames a lot of other people for the fact that she's pretended to be of a heritage that she is not of for a very long time. And people have even noticed and put out some examples of accents that she might have been putting on in interviews and might not have been completely legitimate in order to sound as if she's from a certain part of the world. The misrepresentation was innocent, in her opinion, even though she had done things like refer to going home when she would go to Spain. I don't know. If my parents moved to China, I'm going to go to China and say I'm going home. She said in defense of herself, wherever people currently live to her is as valuable as anything. I don't know. It's such an interesting controversy to get so much of our attention so late in the year with so many other things going on, because a part of me, and I don't know if it's, white privilege or whatever, I'll say it, I'll throw it out there. I just don't care. I just really don't care if someone lied about their own heritage in a kind of odd way. In a way, like it's not like, I don't know. And obviously there's cases that are a tad more extreme. Rachel Dolezal comes to mind, and that seems to be a little bit more upsetting to people than maybe this might be. But I guess depending on what heritage you are and if it affects you, maybe you're upset with Hilaria. But truthfully, like, is she even all that important? This sounds mean. I'm going to say it. Is she really all that important of a person? Like, is Hilaria Baldwin the kind of person we needed to take down, take to task, and make sure that, as much as possible, we keep everybody on the up and up. The fact checking, the things that we do, and that we're not going to do them with the Biden administration, according to a lot of the CNN reporters, but we are going to fact check the origins of one Hillary Baldwin. Is that's the world we live in, though. I also saw that Netflix is going to be debuting another new show. If you've been streaming and watching a bunch of different television over the last few days, you've probably enjoyed a Netflix show or two. The brand new show will be a cooking show designed totally about recooking leftover items. It's called Best Leftovers Ever, according to the Associated Press. The game show will start streaming this week. It will offer $10,000 prizes in each episode to the person who turns the most leftover items into the tastiest possible dish. This comes at a fairly valuable time to many Americans who might have spent the holiday season cooking the same amount of food that you enjoy to have and not necessarily having the same amount of mouths to feed said food into. So you might have a lot of things sitting in the fridge. You might get inspired by this. My wife did get very into cooking shows over the course of the year and baking shows. And that wound up being fairly valuable to me, as she would make cookies and other items often. So maybe you just pop this on and see if it gives you some sort of inspiration. But it does say to me that Netflix is willing to do pretty much any show. If you could go to that establishment and say, hey, how about a cooking show, just leftovers? Like, yeah, make that $10,000 an episode to the winner. I think we could come up with any TV idea. Me and producer Phil are going to brainstorm TV ideas during the commercial break. We'll come back with something, and we'll pitch it to Netflix. I'm sure it'll take off very, very quickly. They have Floor is Lava, Sing On, Too Hot to Handle, their dating show, as some of the other things to mention that have been out, non-scripted reality TV show content. So that's all out there in the world, the beautiful world of Netflix. As I said, this is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in. TV ideas coming up in a bit.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in, and I want to bring in another radio buddy of mine, Brian Noonan. He and I will actually have a new podcast debuting in 2021. Look at that. I'm now self-promoting like a very, selfish and unashamed person. 2 Guys, 1 Week is the name of the show. I believe that's still a little bit in the works. But we will be covering a week's worth of news, including silly things, because Noonan, you and I both like to talk about the silly as well as the serious. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Craig. Good to be here. Yes, I'm running that prospective title by a number of people. Some are for it, some are like, ugh. So we'll see.
The focus group is not all pro. You're saying?
No, my focus group is very opinionated.
Okay. Well, it's good to have an opinionated focus group, I believe. Here, let me ask you this first, as far as some of the serious topics go, before we get into the sillier things that exist in the world. The president has been dead set, in my opinion, on trying to get the American people $2,000 instead of $600. That is something that was somewhat surprising or very surprising, depending on who you are, for him to push for after the bill was passed, after it was ready for his signature. The fact that he took so long to sign it, the fact that he resisted so many aspects of it. And one of the reasons why, he said, was not enough money is going to the American people. This has been embraced by the left without giving him any sort of attaboy support or even credit necessarily for doing it. And people on the right have been oddly silent at times. Some supporters have come out. But how do you feel about, and I've said this throughout the show today, if this happens, if eventually the money goes up, maybe not to $2,000, but some amount of additional dollars get in the American people's pockets, your and I, our pockets, it'll be his and his alone, that deserves credit for pushing to this extent to get this done.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of different avenues you can go down thinking of motivations for the president. But the bottom line is people who are hurting don't care about all of that. People who are hurting see and hear the fact that they might be able to get $2,000 instead of $600, and that's going to make a big difference. So, yes, no matter what the argument is, no matter what the motivation is, people are going to give the president credit if they are able to get this. Now, I think. Oh,
wait a minute. Hold on. You think a lot of people are going to give him credit? Really?
People who get $2,000 are going to cough it up.
Fair enough.
They're going to say, listen, no matter what, because people only care about what affects them directly. And if you're not able to make your rent, if you're not able to buy groceries, you don't care who gives you that money. You're going to take it and go, all right, you know what? I may disagree with 99% of this person's behavior, but they got me this money and it kept me in my house and it got my kids some dinner. So yes, I do believe it'll be begrudging credit, but there will be credit given.
Well, and he'll definitely put his name in the memo section again, I imagine. So that might also help in reinforcing the idea. But he would deserve the credit. As I said before, he tweeted just yesterday that unless Republicans have a death wish, and it is also the right thing to do, they must approve the $2,000 payments ASAP. McConnell chose to not vote on something that was already passed by the House that would have done exactly this. The president did add, as he's been doing when pushing for $2,000, another sort of condition. Previously, it was to cut all the pork out of the bills that were sort of ridiculously overstuffed with things that made no sense at the time in which we're all alive as far as funding of the government goes. Now it's to really reevaluate Section 230 of a previously passed law that gives a lot of autonomy to tech companies, a lot of internet companies that might be able to rein in some of their excuses when it comes to censoring or checking a lot of the content that is put out on places like Twitter, on places like Facebook, which weren't prevalent at all back in 96 when the initial bill was passed that included this clause. So I don't know if a lot of people have called that a poison pill to getting a $2,000 ad or a $2,000 change to the stimulus being sent out to Americans if we add the need for that bill as well. And obviously Democrats would not be pro that, but he continues to talk about this on an almost daily basis, pushing his own side of the aisle to get closer to the other side of the aisle to give more money to the American people. So that deserves, again, to at least highlight the credit that is due. He also was actually voted the most admirable person of 2020, him and Michelle Obama, which is a weird connection. I don't know if they do some sort of party, some banquet when we can do those again and invite both people to it. But how did you react to the fact that he's the most admired man of 2020?
Yeah, I like that Gallup poll, and they break it down men and women. So for the last couple of years, the president has been tied with Barack Obama. This year, he bumped Barack Obama to second place, so he is the most admired man. Then it was Obama and Biden and all these other people were on the list. But you know what? The president has a lot of support. And so it doesn't surprise me that when they asked, and it was mostly Republicans in the poll gave no other answer other than the president, which does not surprise me. And then it started breaking down. But listen, he's got the support. He won. I'm sure it'll be touted in many tweets. I'm sure there's a plaque somewhere going up. It's going to be very exciting.
Left at the White House, maybe accidentally for the next administration to stumble upon somewhere in there.
Maybe just sent to Barack Obama's house. There'll be some gloating.
When I saw it made an odd.
Voted the most admired.
Exactly. It made an odd connection in my brain. I remember I think it pales in comparison, and rightfully so that I say that, as everyone's going to think it when I say it. For my high school prom, the prom king and queen, the queen was this very lovely, very, captivating human being. And then the guy that had won for prom king was an ex-boyfriend and not a current boyfriend. And that created so much drama that evening, Noonan, that I just wish we had to have a public event with Michelle and Donald walking around the way that happened at my high school prom.
That would be lovely. I doubt that the president would be able to clear his schedule for that event.
Oh, you think I think he'd say
sure
yes.
There would be some sort of conflict.
No, I don't think he'd say no. I think he would full on be okay with showing up at that event. I think the Obamas might have some challenging scheduling conflicts to pop up. Let's shift gears to some of the sillier things that exist in the world because they're more fun to talk about this. Did you see the big announcement by Dunkin' Donuts today?
Yes, 20% more caffeine, which I need because the amount of caffeine I drink on a daily basis is nowhere near enough to charge me up. So get that 20% more caffeine.
It's extra charged coffee. It's coffee with a kick, which is I thought what coffee had already. It's essentially what you get when you add espresso to it, but it's much healthier. It's green tea extract or green coffee extract that's being added to the Dunkin' coffee. So I didn't know we needed more caffeine in our coffee. Is that one of the byproducts of the year that 2020 has been, that this is a great solution and one that maybe kicks them over the top in the coffee wars? By the way, it costs an extra $2, I think. Or no, the whole drink only costs $2. So it's very affordable for a limited time until I think the end of January.
Listen, I think for most people, Dunkin' Donuts is the coffee of choice. I know Starbucks gets all the love for the fancy coffees and the the bougies, but you want to go to, especially if you're on the East Coast, you go to Dunkin'. You get your Dunkies, and they make some fine coffee. And if they can give me, because now not only will I get my extra caffeine boosted up with the sugar from the donuts, I'm going to be shot out of a cannon. It's going to be an excellent morning. And then, of course, at noon, I completely crash. Everything's gone. I'm done.
You think that would be another sale? Maybe it's not shot out of a cannon, but maybe you go through like a quick little room that's almost like epileptic in the amount of like lights that are flashing in your face, and then you go out to the world. That's how you started your day, hit a coffee, and then you go through a shocking visual.
It could be. It could look like when they jump to hyperspace in Star Wars.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. This would be the way to charge us up and get us going in the year that is 2021 a little bit better. Did you see, by the way, George Clooney thinks that the president would have been reelected if he had just asked everybody to wear masks earlier than he had. Clooney gave an interview to the New York Times and reflected on the world of politics with just that simple statement. I don't know if you agree or disagree with it, but Clooney has done a lot of things. He made Flowbee a thing again in 2020. So maybe that is advice maybe that's advice that the president wish he had gotten sooner.
Well, the president's own ex-campaign manager basically said the same thing. A lot of people are saying the same thing. If the president had shown some more empathy and bought into the facts and the science about the virus and the pandemic earlier, that I think George Clooney and the former campaign director are right. He would have won.
Yeah. No,
but
fair enough.
Setting up a health.
Go ahead.
I was going to say making a public health issue a political issue, I think was a mistake. And if he had led this a little more empathetically, I think it would have changed the outcome.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. After the break, we're going to have more Noonan. We're going to talk about why you should talk to yourself in third person. There is a new study that says that's tremendously valuable. I'll give you more details about that. I want to know when you're taking down the Christmas tree. Apparently, people are going to be very differently minded on just how long the tree stays up into the new year. And also, finally, I'd love to get your take on an NFL player that is taking all of his money. He's getting his contract in Bitcoin. There's a story about how valuable Bitcoin is today. And apparently this guy made the call to go Bitcoin instead of cash. And I wonder if that's something that maybe you and I should work on for the podcast compensation. All that coming up in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, and I'm doing one of the most self-serving segments I could do while filling in for Chad. He'll be back in the new year. My podcast co-host for an upcoming show, Two Guys, 1 Week, Brian Noonan joins me. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Craig. Good to be here.
Always happy to have you on. My mother just texted and said she's got a different name for our show. No one who listens here probably knows this, but on my own radio shows, my mom is an avid texter all the time. I don't know why. She just so happens to be. She thinks we should do 1 week, 2 takes as the name of the podcast. We got to change all the merchandise then if we listen to her.
Thankfully, we've only printed up 1 box of T-shirts, so this could still happen.
Okay. I don't know, though. I don't think she totally gets the joke of the 2 guys, 1 week, but that's okay. I'm not explaining that to Ma. Moving on. When are you getting rid of the Christmas tree? When are you doing that? A lot of people on social media are now discussing just how long, even if a smell starts to exist for the old tree, that they might keep it up. I think people were putting them up sooner than years past. Are you getting rid of it right away, or is that something you're going to let linger in the house?
Well, first of all, the joy of having a live tree is the smell, Craig. I don't know if you've ever had a live tree in your house. It's part of the joy of the live Christmas tree is the quote-unquote smell. But no,
as it dies, though, hold on, Noonan. As it dies, does that smell change to be less and less desirable, or does it just continue to be lovely no matter how decomposed the tree becomes?
Well, first of all, people water the tree. I don't know. Again, have you ever seen Christmas? You put water in the base of the stand. It keeps the tree fresh. And then as it dies, you're not doing a compost heap in your living room. You're just the tree is there, and then it's gone. The most depressing thing I saw was on the morning of the 26th. As I was walking the dogs, I saw some Christmas trees already out by the curb, and 12 hours after Christmas had ended. I was like, how bad was your Christmas that you're throwing
that's
out
inappropriate.
the tree? But to answer your question, mine stays up until I go with Little Christmas, Craig, the Epiphany, the 12th day. So it'll be like January 7th, January 9th. That's when I take my stuff down.
Yeah, when the wise men showed up and dropped off the frankincense, the myrrh, I get it. Did you see this story about a player in the NFL that took all of his pay via Bitcoin? He actually did this in May of last year. It's viral as a story now because Bitcoin hit a brand new high. $13 million salary entirely in cryptocurrency. Is this guy, a Carolina Panther, a genius?
Well, listen, you're talking to the wrong guy. I want cash. I want cash. I want gold bullion. I want something physical.
Okay.
I don't trust this cryptocurrency. I don't understand it, which is why I don't trust it. I know I've been following the stories that now it's worth so much more, but I'm going old-fashioned money.
Okay, 1 Bitcoin is right now worth $28,000 US. So that seems like a valuable amount of Bitcoin that he might have got a year ago as it's trending up. And people get worried about. I mean, there's more betting against the dollar, I read, than at any time in the last however many years. So that doesn't bode well for our economy. Hopefully, the people betting against it are wrong. But the Bitcoin guy's not going to care.
No, and see, we'd have to talk to some Bitcoin experts. But I don't. Where is the money? How do you get the money? Is it really around? They say it's worth $28,000 for 1 Bitcoin. Can I get half a Bitcoin? I don't understand the whole thing.
It all goes in a digital wallet, which I don't know why I can't have a regular wallet for my Bitcoin dollars. Why does it have to be a digital version of a wallet? Do I carry that around on my phone somehow? How does that work?
I can't attach it to my belt with a chain. I don't trust it.
By the way, in other news, and I thought this was interesting, I talked about it the other day, there was a new study that demonstrated that talking to yourself in third person is tremendously valuable to your psychological well-being. In the year that has been 2020, when so many of us have been less social than in years past, I imagine there might have been an uptick in the amount of conversations you've had on your own. Do you talk to yourself in third person? Do you do this out loud, Noonan, as a radio host? I think maybe we all do it a lot. And do you agree with the assessment that maybe it's good for your mental well-being because it helps you look outside of your own life and reflect on it as if you're not currently living maybe the challenges that you're experiencing?
Listen, Brian Noonan does not talk to himself in third person because Brian Noonan does not like what Brian Noonan says to himself when he does talk to himself in third person or first person or has somebody else relay him messages.
So he would never do that. Brian Noonan's a tad judgmental is what you're saying?
A tad would be an understatement, but yes, I don't. I mean, I have an inner monologue that I don't really enjoy 99% of the time, but I don't talk to myself in third person. I always find that I disagree with this study. I find it very pompous and just silly to talk about yourself in the third person. Very self-important.
Even if you're just doing it alone in your house and you're reflecting on maybe the things going on in your life, you're like, well, I don't know if Craig needs to do this a little bit differently. Doesn't it help you dissociate just a tad is what they're saying that might be good? Or no, you would be pompous if you're doing this.
No.
If a tree falls in a forest, and, does anybody hear the sound? If you do third person alone, is that still a pompous way of speaking?
Yes. If you're talking about yourself, you just say I or me. You don't have to,
right.
you know who you're talking about. Don't try to confuse the issue.
I know we got a break coming up in just a bit. After the break, if you want to stick around a little longer, there is news that John Travolta was almost part of a Disney ride, which to me would have been very interesting to have experienced. Also, and I talked about this before, there is a TikTok dating coach who's getting blasted for the advice he gave on the social media platform TikTok. And I do wonder, if you're going there for dating advice, maybe you already have some issues. But if you want to stick around, we'll cover those topics in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Selfishly, I'm teasing a podcast that I have coming up with Brian Noonan as the co-host. 2 Guys 1 Week is what we're calling it tentatively for now. My mom has ideas, and maybe Brian's focus group does. Welcome back to the show once again, Mr. Noonan.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here. Yes, my focus group. Better at criticizing than suggesting.
They just don't like things like all of social media, huh?
Right. Yes, they are the Twitter of my house.
Wow, that sounds like a fun life you're living right there. Michael Flynn is selling some merchandise. He's trying to get in front of, I guess, some of the popularity that he might have. Former Trump national security advisor. But what he's selling, I guess, might make some people upset. It's QAnon products, the conspiracy theory, the conspiracy group, maybe one individual Q behind all of this. He's got T-shirts, he's got hats, he's got all kinds of things. The proceeds, he said, will benefit a partnership of both him and QAnon groups and organizations. I guess he's somehow connected to or tied to the movement because when he was going through his legal battles, QAnon really rallied behind him. What is your take, Noonan, on Michael Flynn plus QAnon as a potential hat, T-shirt, what have you, for about $35?
Well, listen, Michael Flynn is the equivalent of P.T. Barnum. There is a sucker born every minute. If you are going to be a huckster shilling these crazy conspiracy theories, why not? I'm glad people will be wearing the T-shirts and the hats so that we can identify them easier instead of just being like in the old sci-fi show V, where they look like regular humans, but they're lizards underneath. This way, you got the QAnon T-shirt on. I know to cross the street.
My only disappointment in all this is you can't put a full theory on the T-shirt or the hat. There's too many details. You cannot put a full, one of the predictions of Q on the, or maybe you can. Maybe you can just do some hashtags like 1, 2, 3 bullet points there and get the basis, and then maybe put a website on the back to go get more detail.
Yeah, you have to have somebody who's wearing like a 3 or 4 XL to get the entire theory on there.
Or
maybe
a family.
Poncho, maybe QAnon ponchos. Or a family, sure.
Yeah, you just do a his, her, and theirs.
The theory just keeps going.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got to organize them in the right way. Otherwise, the theory might be predicting something totally different. It's like a Beatles track played backwards. John Travolta was almost part of a Disney ride. Disney almost had a Saturday Night Fever ride, and they were going to use the actor in the ride itself to either talk to you or maybe pop up at an exciting point. How would you feel about John Travolta as part of your Disney experience?
All right, what part of Saturday Night Fever is going to be a ride? Is it going to be when he's brushing his hair in his black bikini underwear? Is it going to be where, he's attacking the woman in the back seat of the car? This is a family-friendly movie, obviously. I don't know how they tie this in.
Yeah. The description of the potential ride would have been incredible IMAX digital projection, spectacular aerial footage that stimulates and simulates the graceful motion that existed within that movie. So maybe it's one of the dance segments that you get to be a part of that in the ride. And then there's old Johnny popping up and dancing with you. I don't know. Sadly, it didn't come to fruition. At some point, the Imagineer behind it just couldn't make it work.
It sounds like the bad version of Dance Dance Revolution.
Bad or great? I don't know what you're saying, because there's a tipping point where bad becomes good again.
No, if I'm spending $150 to go to Disney, I don't want to see John Travolta dance in a 40-year-old movie, 50-year-old movie.
All right, fair enough. That's on you. Maybe I'm still okay with it. I wanted to ask you this question, and I know this is fraught with potential danger when we talk about it, of us saying something that the Twitter mob goes after. But a mom-to-be, she is a celebrity in the world of TikTok. You can follow her at the Blonde Bunny 1. I guess she looks kind of like Britney Spears. She's got like 230,000 followers right now, but maybe I'm helping kick those numbers up. But she has a video that's been seen over 5 million times because she's 17 weeks along. She's got twins that she's expecting. Somehow, her and her man got her pregnant again. 17 weeks into a pregnancy, there's a third baby now. They're calling it triplets, but technically this is 2 separate pregnancies and a somewhat miraculous / super rare super fertilization. What is your take, Noonan, of the Blonde Bunny 1 and the third child on the way?
First of all, I'm looking at this young woman. She looks about 12. And this whole thing sounds very science fiction, very done in a lab. I don't know if, a woman's body is meant to have that much occupancy at one time. Isn't there a sold out sign? I guess so. No more room at the inn?
Yeah. Now you'd think, but I guess this is something that has happened in the world before, maybe not in the world of TikTok, which is why it's so interesting for it to be there. But yeah, she's going to have I do wonder, and this is the moment where I worry about myself getting checked by the internet cancel culture people about the guy in this situation, because I imagine you didn't expect another pregnancy. And I'm not saying he does or doesn't want 3 babies or 2 babies or any of that stuff. I'm not putting that out there. But I am curious as to the reaction of the other party involved, or maybe even just the woman herself, in finding out that somehow pregnancy happened twice.
Well, listen, you assume when your partner is pregnant that they can't get pregnant again. I'm going to cast a pall over this whole thing. I'm calling BS on this whole thing.
Okay. I guess that's fine.
This is obviously somebody who loves the attention on TikTok. And
how dare you accuse the blonde? How dare you accuse the Blonde Bunny 1 of wanting attention on TikTok? That can't possibly be true. Someone named the Blonde Bunny 1. There's no way.
I'm just that kind of misanthrope.
I know. See, I don't trust Jim Acosta. I do trust Blonde Bunny 1. I don't know what that says about me. TikTok also has another scandal, I guess, out there in the world. There is a dating coach on there. His name is Myron Gaines. And he's been attacked for some absolutely clueless and somewhat sexist dating advice he gave on the social media platform TikTok, which only allows 30-second videos at a time, 32-second videos. There is a dating coach on it at all is sort of news to me. But just real quick, what he said is if you have a lady that you met through a dating app or something, and the problem is you can't get them to actually go out on the date with you. They keep rescheduling, changing. You've gotten to the point where you want to meet in person, but something is going wrong. What you should do, according to him, his words, is punish this woman. Either when you finally do have a date, maybe don't pay for things the way you intended to, or somehow cut them off some way that you think might eventually engage them to come back and be a part of the date that they've been blowing you off for. And he says it exactly that way. He goes, punish them for their behavior. What say you, Noonan, weighing in on this controversy?
Do we even have to give this guy any sort of credence for his stupidity?
I don't know.
I know there's that mentality sometimes that nice guys finish last, but this just, as the father of a daughter, if anybody did this to my daughter, I'd be going down to the basement, getting the Louisville Slugger, and we'd be settling this old school. And it would take about the same as a TikTok video, about 32 seconds. I'd be finished.
It'd start and finish. That's nice. One last thing for you. I know I got to let you go. You got your own stuff you're doing, your own radio show you're in on. And by the way, if you want to hear more of myself and Brian Noonan, we have a podcast coming out in the new year, 2 Guys, 1 Week, in which we cover the news of the week and also try to be silly as much as we can because we both like that as much as the serious stuff. I wanted to ask you this story, though. There's some, negative here. 4 suspects in an armed robbery in Colorado are wanted. They didn't hurt anyone, but they stole some things. And I'm just curious about one of the items they stole and whether or not that was a mistake for many, many reasons, not just the crime aspect of it, but the potential to someday be caught and tied to this item. They took vape pens, cash, different things from the convenience store. And then for whatever reason, Noonan, they also stole male enhancement pills. Is that the kind of thing that as a criminal, and I'm not trying to help criminals that much, but if you're weighing potentially someday being tied forever to the decisions you made when you steal a male enhancement pill as a group of 4 dudes, I do wonder if maybe that's going to stick with you to an extent that you don't want it to as far as things people know about you for the rest of your life.
Well, these are, obviously small-time criminals with small minds and small other things that need a little help. But they're going to be very easy to catch. It's going to be 4 guys just laying around some dingy apartment, all stoned out on their vape stuff, looking a little too excited to be there. So it'll be when the police raid the apartment, it's going to be like, yeah, there's no question here. Look at that.
But let me go one step further and put you fully in the situation. You're with your 3 buddies. You've decided to knock off a convenience store, do all the things you're doing, and one of the guys, while stealing items, throws down the male enhancement pills on the counter and says, "We want these too." Is that the moment you step away from the crime? You're like, "No, man, I can't. I'm not tied to that. The rest of it I was fine with. Take the cash, take the vape pens. The minute this is a part of it, no, I check out. I'm out of this heist."
Yeah, unless you're going to some weird swinger party, Pee-wee, you just leave those here on the counter. We're going to take the cash and the vape and we're out of here.
Right. And that's, again, I'm not trying to help any sort of criminal. I'm just saying that this is something that I imagine if you do get caught, and I hope they do. I hope all criminals get caught for the crimes they commit. But I think that it's going to be harder to tamp down, to live down than anything else. You're Brian Noonan. Yes. You and I will be hosting a podcast the new year. As I've mentioned before, it is called 2 Guys, 1 Week. We'll talk about all different kinds of crazy things, as well as the serious and the political news of the week. Thank you, as always, for joining me, man. It's fun to chat with you on here.
My pleasure. Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Quick break and a lot more in a bit.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
It's the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. It is worth mentioning that Senator Hawley has now stepped forward to say that he will help the House challenge the results of the election, at least in Pennsylvania, maybe in some other states. Senator Josh Hawley is the senator needed. You need at least one member of the House, one member of the Senate to do this in order to go through the debate to decide whether or not the election is legitimate or not. It just triggers a bunch of different procedural things. It doesn't necessarily overturn any of the results of the election. I want to let you know that. And there's one other thing I should mention as I discuss this in greater detail. House Democrats have challenged the results in several recent elections. House Democrats challenged in 2000, 2004, and 2016. It was only in 2004 that a senator joined in those sort of challenges. That was a California senator, Barbara Boxer at the time, that actually required a 2-hour debate and then a huge defeat by a wide margin at that time of the Ohio electoral vote, not even one that you might expect, something like a Florida electoral vote. This was Ohio, and this was in 2004. But this did happen. Democrats did this. We've been through this process before. News isn't going to tell you that. A lot of the news media that covers this now is going to say the most undemocratic thing has ever happened. The worst thing in the history of our country is taking place here as they challenge this election. Democrats have done this. I just want you to be aware of that and done it multiple times in the House and at least once in the Senate as well. There was some assumption already that Tommy Tuberville was going to be the senator that actually was going to fold and challenge the results with House Republicans in order to get this debate to take place. Nancy Pelosi has already weighed in on it, too, which I guess I'll play you Nancy's audio real quick.
I have no doubt that on next Wednesday, a week from today, that Joe Biden will be confirmed by the acceptance of the vote of the Electoral College as the 46th president of the United States.
Yeah, Pelosi said no doubt. It's not going to do anything. It doesn't matter. Nothing's going to happen. What I like about this and what I want everyone to pay attention to is the news coverage on it, the discussions of it, and the lack of any sort of mention of the fact that Democrats have done this too, and they did it substantially enough in 2004 to cause the exact same potential thing to happen, a breaking apart of the entire group, the big group, into smaller groups, smaller little, groups to chat, and then everybody comes to a consensus opinion as to whether or not they will legitimize or not the election. But just to challenge it itself, and at least in Pennsylvania, maybe in other places, according to Senator Josh Hawley, this is expected to happen. This is expected to take place on January 6th before the certification of the 2020 election. And again, it's just procedural. All of this is for the most part, unless it does result in something much more significant than what anyone probably intends it to result in. And even Mitch McConnell has begged, begged might be a strong word, but he had asked people not to go down this path. He had asked Republicans not to embrace this in the Senate, much like he does with other things like stimulus bills or what have you. But it's going to happen. There were some other procedural rules that were trying to be changed as early as the 3rd of January that would give more power to Mike Pence in this whole situation. I don't know if those will actually wind up taking effect or not. I doubt it. But those might have given the ability for Pence to unilaterally introduce electors that back Trump as opposed to doing anything else. But this is where we're at right now in this election, in this situation. It's something that obviously the president has been teasing and hoping for quite some time, that the election results do get challenged. They get challenged in a meaningful way. And my only other reaction, other than, again, to inform you as many times as I can, Democrats have done this, is to say just this, that challenging results, discussing all avenues of potential things like fraud, even when proof has not really been presented to the American people in a valuable way, or obviously to our politicians, I assume, in a valuable way, just challenging and trying to make sure that things are absolutely right isn't in and of itself a bad thing. Even if you think it makes no impact, if it has no value, if it's challenging our very democracy as it exists, which some people will crazily tell you. The truth is that just going through the process of making sure we get this right, even if the odds are heavily to one side, that in and of itself is not a bad thing. Is it time consuming? Is it something that I'm sure is going to be represented as the worst thing that's ever happened? Absolutely, you're going to hear that, but it's not. Just as we want to get the amount of cases that actually are COVID-19 related and the ones that potentially aren't right, we want to get every single thing within. I just don't get it. I'll never get the take that people have that this is challenging the democracy itself or eroding all the values of our Constitution, of our American well-being, to challenge these sort of things. I know the president continues to say with certainty on his social media pages that fraud happened, and obviously that doesn't seem to be proven out to be true. And I understand the people who will tell you that lie, if that's what it is in and of itself somewhat damaging, at least to people's trust in our political structure. But it's not what people will tell you it is. And this support by this senator is not also going to destroy the fabric of our society. It's just not going to happen. The parties will break apart. They will discuss probably for several hours like they did in 2004 when Democrats did this exact same thing. They'll come back together, and the odds are, the substantially high odds are, that it will all be affirmed anyway, that this will just be a procedural thing. And it's going to be interesting to see the way it's handled by the media for the next few days, obviously, with the Georgia elections taking place, because you will get to see a very good demonstration of just how partisan, just how unfair the coverage of the media is in cases like this, because it's just not going to be talked about in a great degree of detail, that this is something that does occur from time to time and has been triggered by the other side. It's just not going to be at all the part of the conversation. It's 100% going to be about how President Trump is terrible and he got this to happen, and this is also awful, and that's just not accurate. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. We are so close to the new year. I'm excited for that. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Happier times in 2021, I promise.
The Chad Benson Show.